I'm Professor Bobby Meyer-Lee, Chair of the Department of English. I'm going to start by acknowledging that the land that I'm standing on belongs to the Muskogee Creek, who were forcibly removed from it some century and a half ago. So in a moment, I'm going to turn the podium over to Professor Courtney B. Taylor to introduce our guest of honor, Camhogne Felix. But first I want to thank Leah Owenby for handling logistics and publicity, Corey Britton for recording, and then Karis Books out there in the lobby from whom you may purchase books and have those signed, or if you brought books, to have them signed after the reading. I also want to thank the generous support of the James T. and Ella Rather Kirk Fund, which was established by alumna, artist, writer, and trustee Mary Wallace Kirk in honor of her parents. So the Kirk Fund makes possible a lot of great stuff at Agnes Scott, including its membership in the Georgia Poetry Circuit, which is a consortium of 10 Georgia colleges and universities that work together to bring 3 poets of national and international reputation annually to all the colleges' campuses, providing an important access to the literary arts for Georgia residents across the whole state. Camhogne Felix is this year's first Georgia Poetry Circuit author to visit Agnes Scott College, and 2 others will be coming in next semester in February and April. At each school, the visiting poet gives a free and open reading of their work, which is what you're at right now. And they also meet with students for workshops, talks, or extended Q&A sessions. And so today, Camhogne, I think you visited Ben Sedman's a multi-genre creative writing course. Some of you probably hear from that. So one quick announcement. So the next events that are coming up starting next week are the students in the English senior seminars who will be giving their public presentations of their projects over a series of afternoons in this room. So I'll be sending you all out emails with the schedule of who's presenting when, so look for that. Finally, just silence any of devices that might make noise. Again, after the reading, don't forget to get your book signed and also finish the food. I think there was like one of those little quiches left and some brownies, so I'll finish that up. All right, Professor.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. First event of the Georgia Poetry Circuit, and a great way to start. In 2019, I was sending my debut collection out, hoping to get published. And while I was in that process, I was reading new debuts, hoping to see how other Black queer women writers held their lives in poetry. And that's when I met Camhogne Felix's Build Yourself a Boat. Back then, I was also getting a sense of literary awards, and Felix's book had been longlisted for the National Book Award. And I wanted to know what a long-listed book was like. What kind of poetry was beloved enough for that, because I wanted to be beloved enough too. But the voice of Build Yourself a Boat is so unconcerned with needing to be beloved because it knows it already is. The voice is a lover of itself. The collection, proof that the true love of any Black woman's life is the space she makes for her own voluminous language, and how she protests, laments, exists. That love is beyond any award or outward recognition. Build Yourself a Boat taught me that at a time when I was preparing to put my own language in the world. Morgan Parker says of Build Yourself a Boat, this debut does not come quietly or shyly, and I have no better description. There is an immediate audacity evident in the first poem. The speaker is frank about perhaps wanting to die, nothing minced or hidden. In my copy of the book, I have a check mark next to these lines, quote, I can save my own life just as easily as I can corrupt compounds of ripe silence with just a mouth, drown it out of its own sound. This is what makes me dangerously compatible with death. I keep thinking about that, this inseparable relationship between our voices and death. Felix calls it compatibility. A beloved book helps us survive that compatibility. And back when I read this poem for the first time, I was probably thinking about the rule which says that a first poem in a collection is meant to teach you how to read the rest of the book. But in Build Yourself a Boat, every poem is a teacher. Every poem instructs. How could a Black queer woman not write a whole collection of first poems? There is nothing secondary here. Every poem is, as Felix says, unstitching this plaque over my mouth. A beloved book is an act against silence. I can keep talking about Build Yourself a Boat, but then there's also Dyscalculia. And they say a second book is sometimes a partner to the first, and sure, there are threads, but Dyscalculia hits those threads at a new volume. It might sound simple to say that this memoir makes space for Black women's heartbreak, but that space is not simple, it's revolutionary. Most don't see us as human enough to feel heartbreak. Most don't think our heartbreak can kill us. I experience Dyscalculia as an act against death, or an act of living despite the compatibility. I return to Morgan Parker's words again. This debut does not come quietly or shyly. This can also be said of Felix's sophomore work and all of her work to come. It won't come quietly or shyly. There's no writer that does volume quite like Felix. I needed her volume to know what volume I deserved. My work, the work of so many writers, would not exist in its proper volume had Felix not existed in hers. Camhogne Felix, poet and essayist, is the author of Dyscalculia, a love story of epic miscalculation, which was hailed by Time magazine and Vogue as one of the most anticipated books of 2023 and top memoirs of 2023. Her poetry debut, Build Yourself a Boat, was longlisted for the 2019 National Book Award in Poetry and shortlisted for the PEN Open Book Awards and the Lambda Literary Awards. Her next full work, Let the Poets Govern, is forthcoming from One World. Chair of Nonfiction and Professor of Writing Multi-Genre at the New School, please help me welcome the beloved Camhogne Felix.
Courtney, thank you so much for that beautiful, beautiful introduction. I'm such a fan of your work, and I have such admiration for you, so that was really special for me. Thank you. Okay, how y'all doing? Good. Everybody's chilling? It's cold as outside. Definitely did not come from DC to Georgia to freeze, but I'm here and I'm having a great time. Okay, I'm never really sure where to start because there are so many entry points, I guess, but I think we'll do this. I think I will read from Build Yourself a Boat, which is my first poetry collection, and then I will read from Dyscalculia, the nonfiction memoir, or the memoir, and then I will read some new poems. Sound good? Sick. This is the first poem that Courtney was talking about. Lost poem for RX. The psych on duty in triage asks me if I want to die, and I say, not at the moment, no, but stay tuned. I can charm my way out of anything, including his 7-day suggested say, those ugly gray mornings buzzing in infrasound. I can save my own life just as easily as I can corrupt compounds of right silence with just a mouth, drown it out of its own sound. This is what makes me dangerously compatible with death, me and my ability to finesse choice out of desire, the talented tenth of disassociation, the power of being just a body within a body of jewels. White House. Maybe I should have waited, given my body more time, let the purling of that new moon really settle in, burrow in its call to me, but I had shit to do and me to do, and I forget the gall of the political, how it begs against the centering of self, begs you to meet your wrangled drama at the door. I will always have the trouble of my need to do what I'm told and my need to do what I'm led to. I didn't worry that it was too late. I didn't worry about him at all. My body a salt capsule to drown, little concern for my pilot. All I can do now is swim good love. Take note of the golds that work me down, the shifts that calm my cool. I'm taking it east, steady on my slow walk to the capital of my councils, steady on the way to forgiving my fishers, counting my crows. God knows I'm a creature of mistake. God knows I'm a creature of critical holes. I was given a life and let it off and astray toward the glitter of direction. I know now what thickened the breath, what blackened the womb. In the mirror, I count the new grays, the crimson lines of life's torture coloring the sugar of my thighs. In addiction, the stakes are alive. In illness, the stakes, they hide, they sputter, they die. I worked in politics for almost a decade, and in trying to figure out how to bridge my poetic voice and my political voice, I started writing poems in the form of press releases and statements. So this is one of those. Statement from Camhogne Felix on the murders of Jesse Washington, Stephon Clark, and her attempt to understand the psychology of lynching. For immediate release, Brooklyn, New York. I try to imagine myself threading a small mouse on a spit, the same mouse that we found hampering in my pink bed sheets as I attempt a petrified sleep, a textured sleep, one salted with the humiliation of poverty. I try to imagine myself in the midst of that sleep, quilted, addled in it, unable to restrain the tiny evils inside of me, but I can't get past the first pinch of gelled flesh. I can't get past the trauma of puncturing a thing that bleeds blood, no matter how it beetles through my night, no matter how it shames me out of my interior cultures. I can't get past its squeals. I can't get past the inhumanity. I can't get past the lie, but the gods of small things become the God of all things in the dark. I'm a millennial, and I'm sure that many of you are not. I remember the days when being the millennial in the room meant that we were the youngest in the room, and now it's starting to get weird. So you won't remember this because you weren't alive. But when we were wee babes, there was a thing called the internet. And just like we do today, I guess, we had to get information through Google search. And Google was like still very new, and you had to use particular keywords to find images. So I have a series of poems written as Google search keywords. And that's what this next one is. Google search keywords. Having strange dreams. Owls, crippled, bleeding. What is dreaming? Do owls dream? What is drowning? What non-human forges marks? Who is Eve? Where is Eve's child? In what garden? In what fold? Nativity in question. Species on earth. Species in question. What else gives birth? What else calls war? What else builds nests? What else summons fire to feed? On entropy, after Yasemin Ghazi. There are more people alive now than there are dead in the earth, an article says. I keep telling myself to invest in entropy, or at least in defining it, in contending with it. Decomposition is a performance of exponential dignity, an act of stripping what life-worn fabrics perforate the borders between lyric and magic. I want to step out of my language and light up, but the body is a container. The body is a mold. I fit snugly. I can barely breathe in here. Leave me, I've got to count the dead in here. I'm an atom, and I'm new to the water. I got born by expanding. I get born every day. My flesh is so damn raw with all this entering. Statement on being lonely versus alone. On background. I think carefully about assumptions on my walk home. I hold the map of the moon at the base of my neck, balancing on orbs and light and pride and shit. Heartbreak is an oily firewall, a permutation. I fall victim to my need to be small, even when I pull the sun, the Hierophant, the Ace of Cups. Even with this vice of wealth in practice, grace and sheer ability, I tell my girls, it's all good because I cross with the Two of Cups every time. I fill up. I am at capacity. I sit contradicted in my lonesomeness, in how much I rely on consolation as validation. I know better than to vote against myself, cancel myself out in negatives. Be kind to my friend, Kayla says, and boy, am I trying. This Newport, a foxtail with its hand in its mouth. I shell out to breathe better. I shrink to belong. Or it's all in my head. If this happens to you, what do you want me to do? Burn the city down. The poem could just die right here, but it is not at all tempered, not any of it real. I crawl into his lap, put my mouth to his cheek and scream, holler, you can still hear me, can't you? I am incredibly generous this night. I say, we can watch anything you want. My love is a mourning animal. All I see is dead men. All I see is this rotten, bulbous nightmare looping, chasing your back down, clipping the road in front. I am only a warrior in my sleep. Who I will be in the 28 hours that follow, only the body can tell, really. Zimmerman Testimonies, Day 4, written for George Zimmerman, or written about George Zimmerman during the Zimmerman trials. Zimmerman Testimonies, Day 4. Then, 24 hours later, and Rachel is still on the stand. You can see the arid contempt in the glass eye of the prosecutor, the steel disregard for grief, the swiveled shoulder affect. I'm thinking about 3rd grade. I'm thinking about the time they told me not to lie and I didn't, but they said I did. And I'm thinking about how slowly their mouths shape at me before I'm angry enough to chat back. And I'm thinking about the vertical perk in the eyebrow when I chew a word they don't expect, and how the narrative goes from miss to ma'am once you've mastered the master's language. And I'm thinking about it and thinking about it. You speak so well. And thinking about what if I didn't. This is from my mom. Epigraph. But in what way does the blending of two slightly different selves bring about such a renewal of life? Freud. She bled out through the bone once, bred childless, and I am the one that took final hold, made the novelty a rest stop. She doesn't blame me, not now. Now I'm a raft unswept in seizure. Had I drowned though, had I burned the flag, the grieving would have fluxed all breath, would have been homicide, infection, a lone province, illness merging at the center. I've got no analogies for this reel, only troubled gourds nourishing the crop. She made me with a thrill that stands up, discs stacking over each other like whole moons. Don't give me any grandchildren, she says, not too soon, because what a way to do faith, all the cells roused eternally over the conspiracy of some other sovereign body. And I'll end on this poem from Build Yourself Up. When I say the hood made me, I mean a sheer violence and a bed embalmed in it. A small girl pretzel-legged at the center, soft stones placed at the north and west of her frame, crystals stapled at the southernmost point, the New World assault capsule, a one-way entrance. Before her Nana died, there was a brief quiet, and then the spirits came, and she was besieged with rupture and talked with them only through series of bloodlettings, the blade cold against the stiff brown skin, the dare ripe with noise, so much noise. And is anyone listening except the pores of these walls to this girl, shrugging out of the mud, sopping with it, but limbs activated nevertheless, and the stones with a tide of tension below, pushing them up, up until the spirit exhausts and the crystals fall back into the bowl of the bed, the sugar sticky and stark. A soft voice initiates the beginning of a new life, and then a hum. Okay, dyscalculia. So I don't read from it very often, not for any reason except that I usually read poems of these things. But this book was difficult to write, not because of the subject matter, but I just felt like I needed to get it right, the voice and the ambition. And yeah, it is a book that I hold precious. And it's about heartbreak, it's about illness, it's about finding yourself in the midst of heartbreak. And yeah, I'm excited to read it to you. All right, so boom. The morning after his birthday, we lie lazy in the deep cusp of our bed, the sun's tender touch grazing the fur of our bodies. I reach over to check the time on his phone instead of mine, mostly because his was closest, mainly because a pesky impulse primed me to look, and I get giddy in my ancestors' mischief. I press the phone's home button to illuminate the screen, the phone's home button. Oh my God, y'all even know what that is? Wow, aging is crazy. I press the phone's home button to illuminate the screen, and as if summoned, one lone text flashes white across the face. I'm so in love with you, baby. I wish you were with me last night instead of her. At first, I smile easy at the warmth of it. I love to know that the one I love is loved, a natural symptom of narcissism or of gratitude. After a moment, a dawning flushes over me. The warm wisp of that easy morning suddenly plucked away, my pulse racing into disgust as I realized he lied, realizing I knew exactly who she was, the memory of a girl he'd curiously and opaquely befriended just a few months before projecting from my memory's drunk archives. On my birthday, she offered me a shot of a dry gin, the taste of her guilt like salt on my tongue. I had asked him then, and he had lied. Like an instant high, I feel myself losing my sense of time, colors ringing in my ears, the sun brighter than ever before. I shake him awake, shaking him. As he wakes, I see panic fill in on his brow. Who, he asks? What? No, I'm in love with you, babe, come on. Except the tether is missing from his eye, he is lying again, right to my face, his betrothed, his promised one. Breathing gets difficult then, and with all the ringing in my ears, thinking is an odd task. Something takes over and I lean into my autopilot, calling her from his phone before I even know who I'm calling. She answers and I demand precision. I want to know what, and I want to know for how long. Okay, T. Apparently, he had been planning on leaving me. Apparently, she had been planning on waiting it out. The whole sad time I had been planning on becoming his wife, so none of the data aligned, the margins too muddy to reconcile. There's silence, then the crushing wail of a million mornings, then a collapse. From a view above the room, I watch myself melt into a foolish rage as I'm being let in on a secret that had canceled me out, that made me the woman unwanted. All of a sudden, I am a child again, up in a flame I can't stop, an anger I can't manage. I wanted him, and I wanted him to be sorry, and I wanted to be a woman who could go glamorously unaffected by such blatant ignorance, because how dare he eclipse me, make me ugly, how dare she even fucking breathe. I wanted her ruined, I wanted her flattened, and I wanted to fucking die. A fractal is a never-ending pattern, infinitely complex. It's a simple equation processed over and over again, reproducing itself in perpetuity, hiding around and inside of us like Russian dolls, like a forest bordered by and stuffed full with trees, like a river that splits and meets itself in another river, like a stamp, like your DNA, like your brain, like your lungs, like their functions. Where any death, even the tiniest one, is the result of a patterned agitation. It's hurricane season. We're standing in the warm, wet Brooklyn breeze and sharing a lucky cigarette just weeks before our final dance begins, the starry lid of the sky winking down above us. Tinder's so weird, he tells me. I keep starting conversations with people I can't finish. It's like that, I tell him. Thank God we don't actually have to date. He chuckles, taking a deep inhale on his drag of the cigarette. I ask him, have you met anyone? I reassure him, it's really okay if you have. No, of course not, he says. You know I can't see anything but you. The exact first time I touched a computer, I can't recall. But in the heavy wooden armor of my mind, I can find stacks of them, every single one built by my mother, nearly from scratch, constructing motherboards memory by memory, that lockbox of formulaic intent humming with the blood of her calculated intellect. When we were small, I watched her build them all the time, with either one of my sisters strapped to her chest, her arms bent in a bowl so as not to disturb them as she screws a power connector into its corresponding socket, Bunny Wailer wailing in the background. She caresses the enamel of the shell once built and functional, praying over it, honoring its capabilities. Only after that ritual would she install the games I wanted to play. Math Blaster, You Can Be a Woman Engineer. Wow. You guys don't know what I'm talking about. This is crazy. Only after that ritual would she install the games I wanted to play. Math Blaster, You Can Be a Woman Engineer, collapsing the spine of the desk chair so that my eyes would rest level with the great pixelated sky of the monitor. I was supposed to have a 4-hour-a-day limit on the computer for intellectual posterity, but sometimes, while my mother slept, I would creep down the short hallways from her bedroom back into mine where the big, fantastical box of formulas would await me, teasing me with the confidence of the millennium, urging me towards Egypt, where my friend Carmen Sandiego would leave clues for me, her red wings, right? Her red wings whipping in the pixelated sand. All day, I would think about that empty computer screen and what lay behind it for me, intentionally misbehaving until someone would send me back to my room as punishment, where I could sit, delighted, fixated, tantalized as the night fell down around me, the eclipsing light falling across my cheeks like an even snow. Little by little, I begin to think in the computer's language, its pointer shaping the contours of my dreams. I was dreaming in programs and codes and colors and compounds, dreaming in trapdoors that open with modular keys, dreaming in the voices of my virtual guides, dreaming from behind the wheel of a car powered by good grammar, Mavis Beacon's wily tone lulling me to sleep, singing to me, "Good job. Are you ready for the next lesson?" Time is an anarchy. There are whole sections of years that have, in my mind, disappeared, time revealing its tricks to me like a cocky necromantic. The gaps are caverns of absence, temporal wormholes, where all I can recall is the sensation of being stretched between many different dimensions of crisis at once. As I approached puberty, I could feel the way my short-term glitching was stealing away from a different kind of sight. I watched other girls go unaffected by the terror of growing up in a decontextualized world, watching as the small gears of my body turned against me, executive dysfunction convoluting the word problems that were meant to teach my brain to organize a conflict. You mouse a cookie if give up. Math is the same in every language, and cause and effect is too. That first night we met, at the suggestion of a mutual friend, X and I planned to link up at what was then my favorite neighborhood bar, opting to sit opposite each other, our knees shoved unnaturally into the belly compartment of a Pac-Man console refurbished as a table, the view of the snowy exterior hot like steam. When he walked in and sat down across from me, that smile stretching slow across his cheeks like molasses, I could feel something glowing in the hiddenmost part of my chest, a glow that made my heart sick with shine, gripped me by my collarbone, and the whole time I leaned forward like an arrow in its quiver. Born in Philly, raised in South Jersey, Pisces sun, Pisces moon, born to a gaggle of tiny witches, born in the dead of March, the roads white from winter wear. He turned 10 in the year of Columbine, no longer believes in God, but please no one tell his nana about that, smokes Marlboro 27s, the pack that almost looks like real gold, truck driver for a garbage disposal company, a music degree from a small college in a small college town that he will never use for anything more than blistered nostalgia, a knack for jumping from one pot to the other when the heat goes stale. We were broke and working service jobs that paid us more than we'd ever made. We were young and pregnant with unfair dreams. One wanted to tour the world and shift the soundscape, the other wanted the same. At first it seemed like sickle and sun, leveled and low, desires of different origins, complementary but one. We were fighting for the other's sense of significance, giving everything we could to the other's confidence. I loved his approach to sound making, and he loved to hear me sing. It wasn't always what it became. We weren't, I don't think. I spent much of it swaddled in the warm womb of his golden admiration. X's eyes bloated with the blood of me, his hands bound. For the first time, I was no one's taboo. I was actually perfect and preferred and commonplace, just a girl who was just right for a man deep in his own transposition. First of all, I was already willing to make some simple compromises. If she wanted him at 4 a.m., she could have him. I entered the group chat thinking that our feminisms would take precedence over his underwhelming lies. But since she was so interested in my anguish, I was happy to share with her our secrets of callous betrayal, to let her in on our toxic matrix. No, you don't get it, I tell her over Facebook Messenger, the new interface perfectly blinding in white. I just had an abortion 4 months ago. He doesn't love you. He's just really fucking angry at me. The outpatient psychiatrist's office is suffocatingly tight. Many of the patients treated here are suffering from addiction and are either fresh out of an incarceration facility or on the brink of being sent to one, this pit stop at the docks, the only difference between being here or there. You can feel the formal intensity of that constant truth buzzing with the lights hanging at eye level in the room. So I see here you have a history of self-harm, he says. I nod yes. Is that still going on, he asks. Sometimes, but not as much as before. How much is not as much as before? Like once a week, once a month, he prods. Like once every 4 or 5 months, maybe more. And when does this happen, he asked, which I've got to tell you I'm sick of answering at this point in my life. When I'm upset, if I feel overly frustrated, it kind of blurs my vision, makes things really crisp at the edges. I can't see and I'm just really pissed off and out of it. That's when. I see it says you have ADHD. Can I see your test? I reach for my phone and pull up the charts I'd gotten from an ADHD and learning disorder screening test a couple of months before, nervous that the doctor would find some inconsistency and say the test was fake or invalid. I am familiar with this test center. Good. Wow. Interesting. I cock my head to the side to look beside him, curious to know what he's seeing that I hadn't. There must be something else going on here. Just being honest, he says, as if asking my permission to offend me. If you only had ADHD, you wouldn't have gotten past the 4th grade without real treatment, and you're clearly successful. You could be a miracle, but I doubt it. Stunned by his candidness, I laugh. Yeah, probably not a miracle. Do you do drugs, he asks. What kind of drugs? I lob back. Stimulants, he asks. He squints. Coke. I have, I say, averting my eyes, but only for a moment to not allow shame in the room. And how does it make you feel, he asks. Honestly, weirdly enough, it usually makes me sleepy. And do you actually fall asleep, he asks. Sometimes. I ask because this is typical of people with bipolar. Don't worry, I'm not a cop. Ha, I laugh. Good to know you're not a cop. I answer more of his questions, and finally he asks, do you think there's a possibility that you're bipolar based on what I've told you and what you've told me? I think so. When I was younger, I think I remember one doctor mentioning it, but then never again, so I thought it could just be regular depression or an anger issue, or you're bipolar, he says, interrupting me. You have bipolar. It often gets confused with ADHD because there are shared symptoms, but yours is marked by periods of high productivity and low lows. It's part of why you've had so many suicide attempts but seem to bounce back, he says with air quotes. You're high performing, but your shorter spurts of manic or depressive episodes are marked by extreme mood swings. It's very dangerous. It's quite lucky you're alive. I mean, I think so, I say. Yes, he says, you should. I am 29 before watching the documentary Of Two Minds for the first time. I am struck by how, even in the title, a divisible function is occurring. There are two. There were always two. A thin line between all right and dying. One mind weighing the other out. One mind augmenting the function or malfunction of another. What I know now is that love is a chaos system dialing us into our highest selves and troubling the foundation of what makes us us. And with a chaos system, all you can control is what you can account for, whatever you can quantify and collect. I wake in my own bed, wrapped in the chaos of a city I love, tucked into my own arms, and that is sacred. I look in the mirror and there are no doubles, a singular me, and that is sacred. The light dust of the morning is tickling my ear without the interruption of another's breath, and that is sacred. God, through him I learned the most convincing love, the most prosperous, the crispest trees stacked with our cheap mementos, our affection, a sweaty fruit. But what I craved more than anything was the ability to see myself in continuity, without the burden, without the satisfaction of never encountering an empty draft. I crave a kiss, and kiss myself. I realize I should have premised with this, but dyscalculia is a learning disorder that prevents someone from being able to do arithmetic, basic arithmetic, and math. Would it be good to start with that, but hopefully the dots connected. I only have a little bit of time, so I'm just going to read a couple of new poems, and then I will get out of here. 5 a.m. in the ER. It wasn't that I could be convinced, but that I hadn't been. Every hunt came up empty. I saw a window and wanted to widen the ledge. I felt the draft and closed it. The ghouls lived down the stairs. Every one of us has wandered away from the mouth that feeds, somewhere lost in the aisles of a convenience store. On the one hand, I wanted to live. On the other was dealer's choice. Cartesian theater in the American drive-thru. Talk around the obvious, the whole country's going to shit. Akila Oliver. It's really awful here. Sun shines through the blinds. A cliche takes a genius. When the poplar sings, it's not a song. The glutton is what the body suffers. Look at us, all full with all that suffering. The floor is hollowed ground. The floor is actually lava. The mouth speaks a language it can't take home. The mouth wants to see the edge of the eye. Looking is penance. Looking is a violence well earned. There is ground and sky and hellfire. If I say it any clearer, will it lose its moment? If I say it any clearer, is the moment ennui? The truth is a disagreeable memory, the lie does the thinking. You save $10 shopping alone, at face value. What a rage of a life. Is it worth it? Is it here on earth? Is it scalable? My whole husband took my ride. I drenched the fence black. I plussed the 2.5. What's left is economical. What's left but sediment and wine? Manic eyes. You can't not dance. No thing derides you but the blues. No hospital gurney can hold you, no syntax can sound you. The lie of the season threatens you, and in the sick of its mouth you dare to be alive. The one who loves you is missing, but the ticking is time, you count it. The shadow is yours, you measure it. Another drink, send it. The bells are dawning, you heard it. That whisper of delirium is the master of your blood, the doctor and ornamental consequence. You're a sharp note blown at climax. Now, kneel before your persecutions. Wish everything is soft happening. Where we are going cannot be mapped. Pick a color and swell it. Pick a song and hold it. You are the untouched particulars. Every single day he died loving you. A clinical complaint, or the return of the immediate, or ode to bipolar. Young with vain apprehension, I begged you to stay in the mild. Long dates with the mirror, hours spent down the miles of our dilated eyes, I went hunting for worms to kill. Unintimidated, they stared back at me in pity of the silk of what makes us sick, steady being spun, and in my youth and my youth's arrogance, I toast to the masked particulars of our doubled madness, rising from it after 12 days to declare myself saved. But given the recent circumstances and your insouciance to the simple songs of natural time, I am learning to say your name in the same pitch as I do mine. In shame, I have named you the cruel sister, and hidden my hand, have ignored the material of the veil, the green light on and blinking, but tonight I saw the line and touched it, finger to finger, felt the other side ripple with imminence and knew it then, we could never again be uncrossed. It's twilight in the dying colony of regularity now that I've seen for myself, the warm silver glow of the street lamp haloing the crossroads now that I've seen for myself that dark heavy night from each eye. I hate to admit it, but it's true. You've always known the gusts of these itinerant winds. You have always known the ways of these twin worlds. You know why our moons sickle. You know the clocks of our new alphabet and the cost of each majestic skip down an endless propulsive road. You knew that one day soon the door would swing open and welcome me, and that we'd weep, but have no choice. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up. Here's a love poem, because shit got real dark in here, my bad. It's like, not until I read my own work that I'm like, oh my God, people must think I'm out of my mind. I mean, I am. Then along me. My heart is the sun of my body and it wants you. Do you know how much that aches? Like a salt bath for the blistered, like a cold that withers the bone, It betrays me, yet I kneel to it. Wouldn't you call that a kind of theft? A kind of breaking in? In any unspoken language, shame is a palindrome doubling me. Through the holes, a blue moon whistles its shine, me and all your untouched desires gathering. At night, every bell is your voice ringing my name. I am already willingly of you, ungainly with consent. May I touch the clouds of your chest with my fingers? Am I fated to be the lover who begs? Okay, this is the last poem. It's very short. Promethea. Now that I have been delivered again, the old news of death at my back like a challenger, I have nothing left to lose. Thank you.
Time for questions.
Hi. How does the writing process usually start?
Well, it depends on the genre. So with poetry, usually there's just like an image in my head, and it feels like I need to pursue it, and I kind of just go for it. Just start putting lines down on the page and letting form shape itself and just see what's coming out of it. And then once all the language is on the page, then I go back and really try to evaluate if I'm like saying the thing I aim to say. And sometimes I'm not, and it's a better poem. But with like nonfiction and essays in particular, it starts with a metaphor, right? A thing that I'm trying to compare to another thing. And then similarly to the way I pursue a poem, I kind of like give myself a question to answer. And then I fight to answer it. That's pretty much it. Hi.
Hey there. I know this question can have many answers, but I was just wondering generally, like, how long would it take to write a poem, if that makes sense? Because when I write one, it takes, a day, 2 days. I don't know, is this like a book? Does it take a long time, or like what? A little every day, like.
It depends. There are some times that a poem comes right out in 10 minutes, and you look at it and you're like, actually, it's done. Like, it doesn't need a revision, it doesn't need an edit. And then there are poems that takes years.
Yeah.
And as frustrating as it is, the ones that take years, you realize after those years go by that you like needed all that time to make it do the thing you wanted it to do. But yeah, it can take any amount of time, and you just have to like let yourself be patient, and at the same time let yourself understand the urgency of anything that comes to you, because if it's ready, it's ready, and you don't want to hold back. We have one over here, and then I'll come back.
So I have a question. That's what I'm going today, but I was going to say something. That's gracious. That's crazy. I was asking, how did you incorporate a lot of like your personal language into your writing?
Mm-hmm.
How do you combine it with like the writing itself? Like I know that some voices, like the voices you use to write and the voices you use to speak can be similar, but it's not always the same. So how do you take time to add both of them together?
That's a good question. There's your internal voice, right? And your internal narrative, which is ultimately the conversation you're having with yourself. And then your job on a regular basis, like every day, is to translate your internal narrative into something that's external, right? And so when I'm trying to figure out how my internal voice and internal narrative can match up to what's happening outside of me, I just try to combine the language, right? Like I think in metaphor almost exclusively, which I think is just because I'm like strange. But I realize that I have to actually invite people into the metaphor, so I have to like really explain my thinking, right? And the voice that is like doing the explaining of the thinking is different from the voice that ends up on the page. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I feel especially with memoir that you have to like process the thing before you put it on page, process it before you put it out in the world. And it's through that processing that you figure out how to bridge that language, bridge the language of like authenticity and pain, and turn it into something that is a structured voice that can become an object, right? I try to think about it like that, like the thing I'm making is an object, and the way that I approach the object, the voice that I approach the object is going to be inherently different than the way I approach myself. So I think it's just about deciding what voice applies to what part of your process, and then trying to like pull it all together. Does that make sense? Cool. And then, yeah.
Do you feel like it's been more comforting or intimidating to write about the more hidden parts of yourself that maybe were not able to be expressed until writing?
I wouldn't say intimidating. I feel grateful to have a medium that allows me to see myself and to see myself more clearly in every work. Yeah, it feels good to know that you can do your own self-analysis and that like in the process of doing that analysis you find something useful to offer to the world, right? That isn't just your pain, isn't just your trauma, but something that is like built by craft and study. That's what turns, your experience into genre, right? Because I don't feel like I am like writing as a cathartic thing, or that I'm like writing to like save anybody, or right? Like that is a kind of like narcissistic approach to the work that I have pushed myself away from. I think I write to give shape to other people's experiences and to gesture towards a more macro problem, a more macro issue. So even with Dyscalculia, like yes, it's about heartbreak, yes, it's about math and bipolar disorder, but what it really is about marginalization and the way that Black girls and girls of color aren't given the help and the health that they need to actually be able to process the world in the same ways that other people do. So it's not really about me, right? I become a character in this opportunity to make a larger argument. And yeah, that's how I think about it. I'm like taking my stuff and turning it into something that's bigger than me. So it's not intimidating, I feel grateful.
Okay, genre is a perfect segue. Also, this is a compound question. So, one, how does your poetry inform your prose, in your opinion? And then second question, how do you decide what genre your story's gonna live in? Like, why is this Dyscalculia not a poetry collection?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So for the first question, the poem helps inform in every other genre like how the line works, right? How the sentence might work. I really enjoy approaching other genres with the sensibility of poetry because it's something that often goes unexplored by writers of other genres. Like, writers of other genres either like really love poetry or like can't stand it. And I don't mean this in a shade way, but you can tell, you can see the difference. Because I think in people who come to other genres through poetry or read poetry, there's an insistence on understanding how the line works, how the sentence works, and like how affect is created, how narrative is developed. And so when I'm trying to figure out like what genre an idea wants to take, I'm kind of asking myself that question, like, what is the line gonna do? Like, what? Is it going to provide an image? Is it like simply going to be about affect? Is it just gonna be about form? And usually if it's really about affect, it usually becomes an essay, right? Or a piece of nonfiction or memoir, because it has the space and the capacity to like hold many, many different feelings at once. And I think like knowing poetry and understanding poetry is part of what helps me understand the way that each genre works. For me in poetry, the image is the priority, right? And then like building language around the image is the priority. Whereas in nonfiction, the priority is the story, right? Similar to the way that it is in fiction. And yet, they just kind of like all blend together and find each other once I was able to distinguish between what each genre does for me or what I do in each genre.
Thank you.
Please get your book signed, and there's definitely